Hello, my name is Emmanuel Panesin. I've described the core components of a virtual machine and how virtualization technology can be used effectively in a business environment. First, I'll describe what a virtual machine. Virtual machine is a software-based computer that runs on a physical machine. It, it runs just like a real machine, having its own operating system, its own storage and network communications. Uh, Virtual machines are created and managed by a software called hypervisor. An application of a virtual machine would be if I wanted to test out a Linux operating system, I would use my existing system, Windows 11 system, and machine, and download a hypervisor and create a virtual machine and install the Linux operating system in the virtual machine. So this would help save me the cost of having to buy another system to test out the another machine to test out the operating system. So the core components of a virtual machine include a hypervisor. So a hypervisor is basically a software that is used to manage and create virtual machines. They help to allocate the resources of the host machine to the virtual machine. So we have two types of hypervisor. That is the type 1, which is bare metal, which means that there is no existing operating system between the physical machine and the hypervisor. Is installed directly to the machine. And another one, the next type is the type 2, which is called hosted, which means that there is an operating system between the hypervisor and the physical machine. So another component would be the virtual CPU. So this is the processor of the virtual machine, and this processor is allocated to the virtual machine from the resources, the CPU resources of the host machine, which enables the virtual machine to run tasks and applications. Another component would be the virtual RAM. It is also the RAM of the host machine that is allocated to the virtual machine. For example, if I was, the previous example I gave of creating a virtual machine on my Windows 11 computer. So if my computer had 8 gigs of RAM, I could allocate 2 gigs of RAM to the virtual machine so that I can run the Linux computer. So that is another component. So another component would be the virtual storage. So this is still the storage of the host machine that's allocated to the virtual machine to store files and also store the operating system, which enables the virtual machine to run. So we also have the virtual network card, which enables the virtual machine to connect to the internet and to communicate with other computers. So these are the core components of a virtual machine. So another component and an application of virtualization in a business environment. I will use an example of e-commerce of an e-commerce business. So a key e-commerce business would need to run website servers, multiple website servers, so as to make their business more effective. So instead of them having to buy different physical servers to run to run their websites, they could get one physical server and install virtual servers that will enable them to run their websites. And all these virtual servers will be independent of each other. They don't crash into each other, so they run independently. So you can have multiple websites running, multiple servers that run their websites on one physical computer. So this will be cost effective and reducing the cost of purchasing hardware, maintenance, and power, since they are running just one physical machine. So another thing it would help them with would be in scaling, in scalability and flexibility. So it's for example, I'll give an example of if the one of their websites had so much traffic that it caused the website to be running slow, they could allocate more CPU resources allocate more memory resources to that computer, making it able to run faster. So instead of them having to go and purchase physical hardwares to actually be able to boost the performance of the website, they could just do this by just increasing, and then they could also decrease the resources allocated to the virtual server. Yeah, so they can allocate more or reduce it depending on their needs. So it helps for flexibility and scalability. It also helps them in testing, so they can actually deploy a virtual machine so that they can test a new website they're working on, or test new applications they are working on. So it helps them to test without having any extra cost of having to buy another physical server or physical machine. So yeah, so yeah, and that we also helps them in recovery. So if one of the virtual servers crashes, it is easy to recover because the virtual machines are just documents or files that are saved on the physical machine, so they can easily be backed up and retrieved, and to create another one to take up the responsibility or the thing or whatever the other website was doing. So and also it also helps in security. So in security terms, in which because the virtual servers are running independent of each other, so even if one is attacked, the rest are still safe. So it also helps in security, recovery, in scalability, and it's cost effective. So it is really helpful in a business environment. So instead of having to purchase multiple machines, they can have one physical server that enables them to run all their websites depending regardless of the location. So thank you for listening.